Hey, I'm Peter Franson from christiangeekcentral.com and Spirit Blade Productions. Welcome to this Christian Geek Central watch-along of the theatrical release version of Justice League. I was almost called it Zack Snyder's Justice League, but it's who knows how many parts Zack Snyder and how many parts Joss Whedon. If you want to just skip straight to my thoughts and not watch the movie with me, you can totally do that. I'm planning on putting a timestamp in here so that you can jump to the end of the movie where I'll kind of share, maybe summarize some of my thoughts about the movie. I am recording this just one day after Zack Snyder officially announced that his own director's cut of Justice League would be coming in 2021 to HBO Max. And I thought it would be a good time to revisit this movie and really kind of watch it for what I think for me will be the last time. And give myself, about 9 to 12 months, however long the wait is from this point until Zack Snyder's cut comes out. Give me that much time to just kind of forget this movie and forget kind of like the details of it, so that I'm not so focused on, oh, this is from the original, this is what's changed, this is what's new and stuff, but can instead go into Snyder's cut with as much as possible fresh eyes, instead of just playing a comparison game. I love Zack Snyder's movies for the most part. I certainly love Man of Steel and Batman vs. Superman. Those movies are easily catering to my aesthetic preferences in terms of the weight of the drama that they have, and the seriousness in the tone for the most part. There's still some joking here and there, but let me see if I might want to move this down just a wee little bit. See, do I like that better? I think I do. I was really bummed out when the executives began taking control and requiring him to make changes to the movie, to do reshoots in line with a kind of a lighter tone, which he at the time said that he agreed were appropriate, but who knows how much he was just kind of convinced because of the situation he was in, or was just kind of trying to play nice publicly, and so I really wanted a Justice League that was a lot more serious. And so what I'm planning on doing as I watch this time is talk about the things that do work for me, and there are definitely some things that work for me, but also talk about the things that I hope will be changed or improved, and that I think have the potential to be changed in a way that will really suit me with the Snyder cut. This is not going to be about me sitting here and bashing on Joss Whedon. I don't have anything in particular against his style of directing, but neither is he a director that stands out to me as having a style that I particularly like, So I imagine he was doing something that was very difficult in a very difficult situation. So I'm not here to bash on him. And these also, what I'm going to share are just my preferences. A lot of people really, a significant number of people did not like Batman versus Superman, which is why I think pressure was made to change Justice League. And so I think that the things that I think would improve Justice League may differ very differently from what you think would improve Justice League. So this is just me sharing my preferences. So my intent here is just to kind of share what works for me as we play the movie, and what I think could be changed to work better for me. Now, as far as how we're going to handle the sync up here, what you'll need to do is get your copy of Justice League ready and get it started playing. And let the Warner Brothers logo, kind of appear. But as soon as that WB logo fades to complete black, at that instant, that's when you want to pause the movie. And then in a moment, I'll say 1, 2, 3, play, and on the word play, you and I should push our play remotes at the exact same time, and then our viewings will be in sync. But I'm not going to be giving commentary that is really timing precise, and so if we get a little off, it shouldn't mess up the experience at all. So I'm going to take a moment. You go ahead and take a moment and get your Blu-ray set to have it paused at the exact time that WB fades to black. Okay, I think I'm all set. Are you all set? All right, so remember, it's going to be one, two, three, play. And on the word play is when you want to press play on your remote. Ready? And one, two, three, play. All right, and we're off to the races. And hopefully I won't be interrupted at all for the next 2 hours. I arrange things, I think, pretty well with my family. So right now we're already hearing Danny Elfman's score. And the original score, I believe, was going to be done by Junkie XL and maybe also Hans Zimmer as well. The two had worked together for Batman vs. Superman. And Hans Zimmer at least was in did Man of Steel. And that can make such a huge difference for me in the feel of a movie. Now, that first shot we see in the movie with the mustache digitally removed. He had grown a mustache for the Tom Cruise Mission Impossible movie, and so for the reshoots that they brought him back for, they had to digitally remove the mustache. He looks like Adam Baldwin to me. You can look up a picture of Adam Baldwin. There's something about what they do to his lip. He also is behaving artificially to me in these reshoot takes, as Cavill sometimes feels a little bit to me in his performance of Superman, but in select instances. And I feel like in all of these retakes, he feels artificial to me. Like he's just making actor-y choices, and his heart's really not in this. He's not really in the psychology of the scene, I think, is what I would guess. What was he thinking about there, do you think? Was he thinking about Lois? Is that what we're supposed to think? I don't know. That's a nice thought. I would like to think that even in the reshoots they were trying to focus on character moments, even though that seems to really have been the main thing that suffered when the mandate came down from the producers that I believe would receive a bonus for doing so somehow. They had financial incentive big time. The mandate came down for this movie to have a runtime of no greater than 2 hours. And it comes in at 120 minutes and a couple seconds, I think, exactly, when you factor in all the credits. That's so they can get in more view times per day in the movie theater and get more butts in seats. Now, this whole scene, I'm not sure. It feels like a Zack Snyder scene to me. I would believe that this entire opening sequence is all Joss Whedon. It's not that it looks bad to me. It just doesn't have the visual style I would expect from Zack Snyder. I mean, there's some slow motion there, but slow motion does not a Zack Snyder style make, necessarily. The performance of this guy also doesn't feel quite as psychologically grounded. This is that pouncing in, dum, 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 dum. And I think we've already heard the Batman theme once, maybe? If not, we'll hear it many times later. It's the return of Danny Elfman's Batman theme from the Tim Burton movies, which I think is a big mistake. I mean, it's kind of cool. I don't have any complaints per se. I have two canker sores. I'm going to try not to bite them tonight. We'll see how it goes. Already, a little touch of comedy here. Dialogue's a little weird, too. It's a little expositional. And, see here. It doesn't feel like real dialogue to me, or dialogue that's about character. It feels like it's dialogue that's like it's in here to hit some story beats, which is probably what they really had to prioritize. Now look at this sequence here. This looks like a Zack Snyder sequence to me. I would even believe that he chose this music and they just kept the music in. This looks like scenes in Watchmen. This looks like scenes in 300, where you've got these slow-moving scenes, sometimes scenes of chaos and action that are going really slowly. And so he gives us these very striking, slowly moving, but still feel like still images. And so they feel still, but yet they're just barely alive and moving, you know. It's very somber, too. So if this is not a Snyder sequence, then it's a real good imitation of one on the part of Joss Whedon. And man, the weight I felt over the drama in Batman vs. Superman really helped me to connect with a lot of this movie that I think I otherwise would not have because of the issues that I have with it. So this movie is helped by what Zack Snyder did in the first two movies and how he moved me in those movies. So now we're establishing, as that crook said, that like there's this sense of fear and dread and hopelessness in Superman's absence. And I suspect that was intended to be a strong theme that was communicated maybe subtly in other ways, or in more pieced out, dosed out ways throughout the movie. I tried. I wonder if in the Zack Snyder cut we see that the guy killed himself. Like he made the sign, then they cut back and we see that he's dead. I don't know. But there's just this sense of Superman is gone, his symbol means hope. So if Superman is gone, then hope is gone. Now here's where Elfman's score just started not working for me. When they cut to his feet here and we see him walking into the bank or whatever this is. We're the bad guys up to no good. It just feels like early Elfman, which worked for early Batman in the Tim Burton movies, but it feels melodramatic and slightly comical. Not comic booky, because comic books can have all kinds of tones, including very serious and heavy ones, but comical. I'm glad they brought the Wonder Woman theme back. It's a great little piece of music. Although I like it better when it's electronic instead of like this brass and string thing. Now already this has a little bit of a lighter tone to it in the criminal's reactions to her. Wonder Woman had some comical moments too, but was really largely serious. So I wonder when I see scenes like this, was this something that Snyder shot after being told to lighten things up? Is this a reshoot? Or is this something that Whedon shot that might even be, that's even further in that direction as a result of Snyder being out of the picture? I don't know what he's got going on. I feel like there's some background. I have no idea what drives him. He's just babbling something that sounds culty or... And there's so many things in this movie that I just want to be fleshed out more. What drives this guy? Is he in some ways also motivated to do this because of the hopelessness that's resulting from the vacuum of Superman? I don't know. Now, I'm not going to be able to give you a blow by blow of all the changes because I haven't done the research that well. But I have heard that in this sequence, there's another bomb that she missed. I don't know if it killed anybody, but she still missed it, so it was a kind of a heavy moment. That's that's still cool to see her going at it like that. Super speed, blocking all those machine gun bullets. Now, I think that maybe is meant to be a carryover from the plot thread in her own movie. You know, she's a believer in humanity. That's why she's entered back into it. Or believer in love. That's what it was. She doesn't believe in humanity. She believes in love or something like that. I think that was kind of like the climactic thing in her own movie. So anyway, I won't be able to give you a blow for blow of all the different scenes and what's Snyder, what's Whedon, what's reshoot, what's not. Now look at him. Get a good look at his face. Because there are other times where Ben Affleck looks different to me that I think might be evidence of reshoot. Like maybe this was really early in photography or something. He looks a little puffier in some of the other shots. Like he's maybe gained a little bit of weight, like which would be evidence to me of a reshoot. Like he's past the peak that he got in shape for the movie when they brought him back for reshoots. I don't know. I also heard that this shoot was really hard on him. He might have even been like drinking a lot during this. I don't know, so don't quote me on that or hold it against him because I don't know. But all that to say, I'm just trying to figure out, share with you my speculations on the clues for where the reshoots can be seen. I like Jason Momoa as Aquaman. He really works for me in this movie and in Aquaman. Even though I have issues with the kind of the light levity, the lighter tone of the Aquaman movie. I'm wondering if he looks a little puffy here. I'm not sure. This might be reshoot stuff. Hair looks a bit different. Snyder has said that we've only seen probably about a fourth of what he made for this movie. Yeah, the jokes really just fall flat for me. It's probably because I have a really cold, dead heart. There's something about him that Ben Affleck looks different to me. Like, not quite like he's been digitally manipulated to look smoother or cleaner or something. Maybe just the makeup he's got on. I don't know. So here you got Barry Allen, who has his powers pre-scientist, pre-being a crime lab scientist. And he behaves honestly a lot more like Wally West than Barry Allen is known to behave. But I wonder how much of that's in the original Snyder cut, because Ezra Miller, who plays Barry Allen, has been open about the fact that he really wants the Flash solo movie to be dark, to be serious. And so I wonder if he signed on for a part that was a lot more serious than this version of the character ended up being. This feels pretty Snydery. That's a great scene. I want more of this. I want more of this fleshed out. Help me understand what drives Barry Allen. And we got Miles Dyson. This character really got shortchanged. There's a trailer that shows him playing football with some cool, very Zack Snydery slow motion type stuff going on. I'm pretty sure there was a whole lot more backstory, a whole lot more about the relationship between he and his dad, which clearly has dysfunction and clearly must be in his heart and his mind as he's trying to navigate through life. You know, these characters, the action sequences could mean so much more and be felt so much more by me if you help me understand what these characters want and what price they're willing to pay to get it and what the cost will be to them if they don't get what they want, you know, in life. What the tragedy will be if they fail. You know, it's stakes. It's the sense of stakes. Now, one criticism I'll give to Zack Snyder is that I feel like the costumes in this movie just come a little closer to objectifying the Amazons. I thought their costume designs were very respectful and covered them appropriately, but there's a lot more midriff exposed in Amazons in this movie than in the Wonder Woman movie. Now we're thinking, who the crap is this guy? Fans know it's Steppenwolf. Well, and so do audiences now, but who is that? It's a weird name. I'm not digging that animated face. You know, it's cool eye candy. There's lots of crap going on. But what are the stakes? Clearly it's important to them. To do something so desperate. I mean, I kind of assume that those Amazons all know they're going to die. And sometimes it's okay in a movie to not make the stakes clear, just show that people are responding to stakes of some kind and they're motivated by stakes of some kind. We can be kept in the dark for a while. That's all right. Man, if you're going to have a main villain, though, that's CGI... I even had issues with Thanos. Even though, you know, Thanos was, I think, better in his facial articulation and expression than Steppenwolf is in this movie. I mean, I think a lot of the effects in this movie, if I were to guess, were just the victim of they did a ton of reshoots and suddenly they had to do visual effects in a much shorter time in order to get the movie out on schedule. Which they were going to do, unfortunately, instead of waiting for Zack Snyder to mourn the death of his daughter that took him away from production. Okay, so he's got this whole ideology in his head. We're gonna have this unity, righteousness of power. It's got these really religious overtones. So I want to understand what is driving him. What the heck is the unity? But we never get that spelled out. Here we go. This has got to be part of the reshoots right here. Yeah, let's get a grandma to do some really hardcore swearing and beep her out. That's funny. Come on. It doesn't feel like clever writing. It just feels like, insert joke. We got to get jokes in here. We got to lighten this thing up. Too serious. Now, I want to say there may be some things about this movie that this cut that bother me or annoy me that maybe they'll be in the Snyder cut. Maybe they were intended. And maybe in that context, they'll work for me. Because editing, score, all kinds of things can make so much difference in tone and how the audience is prepared to receive and interpret moments. That feels like an inserted joke. There's just so much cram. This movie just doesn't breathe. It doesn't breathe. We could have had a little bit longer scene between Mock Kent and Lois. Could have had a flashback here as he's sitting alone, just contemplating. Flashback that shows his origin. I think he looks thinner here. He looks less puffy to me here. And that scene could have gone a little bit longer. Here we get a real quick sequence here. Exposition delivering over top of it. He might look a little puffier here, I'm not sure. I wonder if that other scene went longer and this is part of a reshoot. Okay, so I guess it was explained what the Unity was. But why is it called the Unity when it does this apocalyptic thing? That seems weird, right? There must be a reason. There's still... Nice Green Lantern reference. But what's he driven by? He just wants to go around destroying worlds and making them like his home world? I mean, how, like, uninteresting and mustache twirly is that? Anybody else getting Lord of the Rings vibes? Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if this was all reshoots. It's lots of exposition. Zack Snyder's way is more about just letting you sit in scenes and feel scenes while he slowly gives out exposition. It's not usually his style to just fire it out so fast and dense. Ugh. Sorry about that. Better turn this off, huh? Now look at his hair. His hair is glossy. It's got a little shine to it, like it's got a little product in it. Watch for when it gets a little shorter and drier looking. Those, I think, are reshoot scenes. This, I think, is core photography, principal photography. Like going all the way over his eyebrow. I like the electricity effects a lot. As a Flash nerd, I wish they were yellow, but I like them. That's cool. Watch the hair now. And here. Look at that. What is this, a Seinfeld episode all of a sudden? Let's stuff some Seinfeld in there. There, look at that. What the crap just happened? Now, was that whole scene a reshoot, and then the dry hair part was a reshoot of a reshoot? In other words, was he always intended to be funny like this? And they just decided to stretch it out and do more. Just more for the sake of more. That's a good line. I like that line. That was in the trailers, I think. This is weird continuity-wise. Like, is this post-accident? Because we saw in Batman vs. Superman, he was like stuck to a wall and had a lot less to his body. So did this accident progressively destroy his body? I don't, like, that's a continuity issue I do not understand. Makes me wonder if that little bit of B-roll footage or whatever was also reshoots. I love this version of Cyborg, Victor Stone, that he really became in the comics a few years before this movie. He just became Mr. Plugged In, Mr. I am one with the internet, you know. And that's really cool. Now, in case I'm talking over it and I miss it, I want to point out the Batman did bom 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 bom. They used that a ton, and I think what Hans Zimmer was doing without a theme for Batman in Batman vs Superman was a lot cooler. His face looks a little smooth there, it's processed somehow, and I'm talking about the flesh part, you know, like something. I don't know. It might be the lighting effect that they added in post. Maybe they didn't have a real light source on his face during filming. I don't know. But something looks a little off. Now I'm curious about this. She keeps talking about losing Steve Trevor and how that kind of like kept her out of the game until Batman vs Superman. But now the Wonder Woman 1984 movie is coming out, and we see that Steve Trevor somehow got unfrozen or something. So did she really lose him or what? I don't know. I don't know how Wonder Woman 1984 will work with where her arc begins in Batman vs Superman. But that's a side issue. Has nothing to do with what works or doesn't in this movie. That's cool. That's a great shot. I think that's Snyder. I think that's Snyder. That would also be a really costly kind of production type thing to recreate in reshoots. Crap on his hand here. Doesn't seem to be there in that shot. This is probably, yeah, I mean, that whole slow motion, I'm a party guy, hammering back booze, that's probably Snyder. They kept a pretty consistent look between this movie and the Aquaman movie in terms of how they do the underwater scenes. I don't know if they had James Wan involved in this movie at all, or they kind of settled on a basic approach that they used consistently. Now, I think they do a good job of establishing Steppenwolf as a powerful threat, that he's physically powerful. And Mara's awesome. I really think Aquaman should just have her powers. The ability to control water. That's really cool. And this is great for just showing how durable Aquaman is. Just what a force to reckon with he is. That whole kind of like, Conan vibe that they're really giving him. Appropriate given the casting. Man, I mean, that was just a small slice. I want a whole lot more. I mean, we haven't seen the Aquaman movie yet, and so everything we get from these new characters is precious. And we're just not getting near enough of Aquaman and Victor Stone, and Barry Allen for that matter. So here we've got the family. The family whose job it is to, I guess, present some sense of stakes for the people that are in trouble in this country. But it kind of seems like they're the only ones in this country a lot of the time. And I wonder if that's because they really wanted to tone down showing people in danger after people, really having an issue with Metropolis getting half destroyed in Man of Steel. So it really does hang on Superman. Take note of how often dialogue is spoken when they're not showing lips moving. Because that's when things can really get changed in post-production. Okay, for Darkseid, so there's little indication. Okay, so there's some higher being called Darkseid. Of course, as comic book fans, we know, but still, for a satisfying experience, I want the stakes presented in the movie itself. So there's some higher power that he answers to, named Darkseid. And here we got an actor who's just like, I hope there's a ton more scenes with him in them in the Snyder Cut. You don't want to underuse that guy. I mean, it's not completely uncharming to me. It just outstays its welcome now and then. All the Barry joking. There it is. Bom 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 bom. It just feels like a very safe choice to bring that theme back. Like, let's appeal to people's nostalgia. Let's go to the safe places. Let's try to bring them back to the Batman they liked. The Cyborg's armor, like his body, just seems unfinished somehow. That's not funny to me. It just feels like filler. Was he being sarcastic? Why did they all vanish? That's Batman's thing. I don't know. This feels like a forced moment. If you look at the suits that they were wearing in Man of Steel on Krypton, the armor they were wearing, that was not costumes. Those were all CG created. And they looked far more real and on location in the camera than Victor Stone does. So we got the team just hastily gathered together and we're going on an adventure. It doesn't feel earned to me. That's an interesting concept. It's not true to the Flash necessarily, but I think that's kind of cool. I mean, like, I can believe that a superhero like the Flash with his power set would not have started out as a combatant. They would just start trying to save people. Although it sounds like he hasn't even done that, like rescued people from burning buildings. I don't know. Yeah, that face is weird. I feel like it's a Disney villain the way his face moves. Yeah, the music, all the brass, it just has an old time feel to it. It does not feel like the music used in Man of Steel and Batman vs. Superman that had more drama and gravitas to it. This has more. I would almost expect this kind of music in like in the Batman animated series or the Superman animated series. The trumpets doing their thing there. Bom, 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 bom. Hear it again there. That's cool. But I don't want the Batman theme again. They keep using it. Ba, 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 ba. I mean, it's so on the nose. Her face looks a little CG there, I'll be honest. This is a cool sequence. Now, he could have used the Flash TV series theme, but he didn't. But he wrote that too. Just didn't bring that back for whatever reason. And this just doesn't compete with what we've seen Quicksilver do in the X-Men movies. They really needed to do more, I think, with Flash in terms of spectacle. And then I personally don't like him tripping here. I didn't like that in the animated series either. He needs to be much faster than Superman and much more in control of his body. Otherwise, he's just kind of like, I only do Superman super speed. I don't have any other powers, you know? And him getting hit in the leg, I mean, I hope the next time we see him in his own movie or a Justice League movie, he's just more experienced and on top of it, you know? I would have thought Batman would have briefed Alfred on Victor Stone. Again, maybe I'm being nitpicky because there's just things that aren't working for me and I wouldn't ordinarily notice those things. I think that happens a lot in movies. People get more nitpicky when the things they truly care about aren't working for them. So all this business about mother singular. There's multiple mother boxes, so what is he talking about? Is there a singular mother behind all of the mother boxes? I want to understand how disturbed the villain is, what his worldview is, and how disturbing it is, so that I understand what the cost will be if he's not defeated. You know, just the whole like he's going to destroy the world thing, we're just numb to that, I think, as audiences. It doesn't mean anything to us anymore, you know? But give us a more specific sense of the horror that would result in him succeeding. See, we saw that was from behind Jim Gordon, so they they can change all kinds of lines in post-production if they have the actors record them while the character is facing away from camera. So we might be very surprised at how radically different the movie is. Here's the family again. All of Darkseid's forces. They're the only ones that seem to be suffering. I mean, what they're supposed to represent is what's happening to many, many, many families, but we don't really get much of a sense of the many, many families. Just this one. And again, I think that's because some executive or some focus testing data results said people don't like to see too many people in danger. I'm it's too on the nose. And his hair seems dry again. That looks like it might be those jokes there. I think those are reshoot jokes. Where's all the angst that was driving Barry? Why even bother giving us that scene with his dad if you're not going to have that be a part of what drives him? He's just a kid in a candy store having fun, wants friends. I do like that line. What's on your weird mind? See, I'm thinking he looks just a little puffy to me there. I don't know. I don't know. It's hard to say. Maybe I'm imagining it at this point. See, I think that Barry line there, I think that was a reshoot line. That looks like reshoot hair. I don't know. Short hair. It's definitely shorter than in that scene where he met Bruce Wayne. Gosh, is this whole scene here reshoots? It's so hard to tell because some scenes that might feel like, oh, this is a reshoot scene, it's so forced and stuff. It might just feel that way because of the editing, because of how much they cut out. And there's so many scenes I want to breathe more. That's a nice line. He's got this hardness to him, even though by the end of Batman versus Superman, he really recognized the humanity of Clark in the infamous Martha scene, which really helped him connect it all together. I can't help but wonder if this whole thing, this whole scene here, is maybe a reshoot scene. I don't know. See, I can tell the jokes are happening. I just feel like a lot of the shots in this movie, peppered throughout it, just don't have the style about them that I would expect from Zack Snyder. It's not anyone's scene. It's just after a while I notice that there's a style missing. And it's a style that draws the eye to things. It's not, it's not just like, oh, cool, it's eye candy. That's not what I mean by style. I mean, it's the way he uses imagery makes me feel what I think he wants me to feel, and it's not gonna, it's subjective. It's not gonna have that effect on everybody, but it has that effect on me, and that's why I miss it in this movie. Now, see, him actually conducting electricity, that wasn't my understanding. My understanding was that what we're seeing is speed force energy, and that people actually aren't in danger of being electrocuted constantly around the Flash. But, whatever. That's what they want to do in the movies. That's fine. I don't feel like the build up to this, I don't feel like it's enough. I don't feel the effort or the sacrifice involved in bringing Superman back. It feels too easy. And yes, I know that it kind of goes south after the fact, but even this lead up to it, after watching that death and just sitting in people mourning for so long, of the end of Batman versus Superman, for them to come up with this idea and execute on it so quickly, it just feels too easy. And it cheapens, I feel like, the death a bit. this doesn't play to me with like the sense of, oh my gosh, they did it, they did it. That's what I want to feel. Because the world is supposed to be hopeless without Superman, and so when you are able to bring him back, at least in the moments before we see something's wrong, I want to feel like, oh good, it's going to be okay, things are going to be all right. I want to feel that, and I don't. I just feel like they're doing some weird comic booky sci-fi thing. So, lip looks good there, I think. Not noticing anything funky yet, so this seems to be all Snyder stuff. Hear that bump, 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 bump. Bump, bump, bump. Oh, it's the minor version of the Superman theme that John Williams wrote. They're completely abandoning Hans Zimmer's wonderful, swelling, slowly building theme in favor of this old-style superhero march that in its day was great for the style of movie being made, but I don't want it here. It just feels like a choice made by committee. We gotta play it safe. Everyone liked those Christopher Reeve movies, right? Let's do that theme. Oh man, that looked all weird. His face there, his head looks weird there too. Still Snyder stuff here, I think, with what we're seeing on Superman. And I like this in a superhero movie. You like to see the superheroes fight each other at some point. That's every comic book's geek's fantasy is like, well, who would win in a fight? Who's stronger? Whose favorite superhero is really the strongest superhero? So you got to have things like these. And if the plot can make sense of it, then cool. I don't know if I'm buying that moment with Cavill quite. I don't know why the lasso doesn't work there though. I liked a little bit of that pose that he did before taking off, but it felt a little posed at the same time. I like the choreography, where he was shaping his body as he was taking off. And this is a cool moment, when when he realizes, oh crap, he's fast enough that he can see me. This is cool. This is great. That said, Flash should be way faster than Superman. So he needs to up his game by the next time we see Flash in a movie. There it is again. Bah, 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 bah. I don't want that. It's too just like on the nose. I mean, like, it's a distraction to me. It takes me out of the movie because I'm hearing, oh, it's themes, lips, something. So why did they need to put that in there? Why did he need to say, I know you? Why was that so important to this cut? Did they need to make this scene about his anger toward Batman? For some reason, and maybe in the original scene, it was about something else. Oh, I think his lip might have been a little funky there. That CG lifting him up there, Superman looks CG like. Lip again. So this whole aspect of this conflict, it's tacked on. What was going on in the original? So that's a callback too. The lip, I think, is still funky there. So it's like they altered this scene to make it about. And see, look, I think he's okay. I think the lip's okay there. In the original, is he just up in the air for some other reason and Batman's not with him? That's why I want to see the original scene, because I don't think it was about him butting heads with Batman. That seems to be something that they inserted and made the center of that scene. Here's the thought. Was he instead... Oh, look at this. This is a great moment. Cavill here is... I just buy it. I buy this. Gosh, I'm welling up just looking at it. I mean, it's bringing me back to the end of Batman versus Superman. That seemed like a Snyder moment. Is that Batman? Really? Would he say that? Oh, something's definitely bleeding. Is that the kind of dialogue that screams Batman to you? That screams reshoot to me. It was a very isolated shot, just him laying down on the AstroTurf lawn. That would have been a really easy insert. I think it was an insert. And it doesn't feel like Batman. It just feels like a joke inserted for the sake of inserting jokes. So not only do they slice out character scenes, but they insert stuff that's inappropriate to characters. So what I was going to say before is, could it be that in the original, Darkseid was somehow controlling him through the mother box that brought him back to life? Was that really something about what was going on, instead of like him waking up remembering how angry he is with Batman, like Wonder Woman suggested might be the case? I don't know. I don't know. And then we just violently cut away from that, from what was probably a much longer played out scene, to this. Let's get some exposition going here. It's all just exposition. Oh, there's a little bit of character there. That haircut, he's got the shorter hair. He's got the reshoot hair. Is this whole scene a reshoot scene? Maybe just when they show the Flash, they did reshoot versions. I don't know. I keep looking at Ben Affleck's face, trying to figure out, does he look puffy here? I like that delivery. It makes me chuckle because of Ben Affleck's delivery. He's being funny Ben Affleck. Not quite in character for Batman. And he references the shoulder there, like he's been wounded. Now he's going to go tend to himself, and I believe this was confirmed, as I saw online. This is a reshoot scene. So because he has this thing going on with his shoulder that he alludes to in the last scene that leads into this scene, that makes me think even more that both of these scenes are reshoot scenes. Yeah, he looks a little bit puffier there in the eyes is where I'm kind of noticing it. So see, we've got this bit of character here, but it's just kind of, it feels like it's coming out of nowhere, being presented for the first time here. And I want those kinds of haunting thoughts to show up earlier. Something about this, the lighting or something, feels artificial to me. Something about maybe even the corn. I think his lip is doing funny things too. I think this is on a set. I think this is a set with blue screen and fake corn. And a wig. Something looks a little bit wiggy about her hair. Yeah, his lip's funny. Ugh, look at that. Whew. I feel like this scene was a reshoot to do a shorter version of whatever they did before to really invest in the relationship. And for some reason they did this whole reshoot thing. Oh man. Does she know about my lip? I hope you didn't tell her. I wanted to tell her myself. I was I was trying to feel this scene so much, but the lip was just I couldn't not see the lip, and so it was taking me out. You know, even though um I want to say, oh jeez. Is Amy Adams, is that her name? I think it's Amy Adams. Even though she's, at least by the end of the scene, really, I feel like connecting with the scene. I didn't feel like earlier in the scene she was really psychologically connected with the scene and really feeling the scene. But by the end, she was doing some good stuff. I just was taken out of it by the stinking CG lip. And after all the time they spent in mourning and in the wake of his death to get these really condensed scenes over, gone, no big deal. Do you remember the scene when she was burying him and we're thinking about how she lost Jonathan, her husband, and now her son? Now, I want the payoff for his return to be so much stronger because they put us through the ringer in Batman versus Superman. And all this just, I think, somebody on the Christian Geek Central forums at one time, when they're looking at the trailer for this end, featuring scenes of this end sequence, just looks like it looks like I feel like I'm looking at a video game, and yeah. And yeah, Cyborg had something weird going on. He's not completely in control, maybe. Is he compromised by Darkseid, maybe? That big goofy grin on Flash's face. I mean, he's just a bit one note. And that whole opening scene with his dad, just like, I want more to his character. Is this a new vehicle? I don't remember seeing this. Bruce said something about the transport won't fly that fast. Cyborg said it will for me. I didn't know he had a transport. Now, already he's talking a little bit too long. Now, I like the punchline. Just it took him a little too long to get there for me. And sometimes the delivery is just too slow. You know, when you give us too much time, this is just basic comedy. When you give your audience too much time to anticipate the punchline, then the punchline has to be even stronger and more unexpected. You know? The more time you give your audience to wait for the punchline, the more likely it is to disappoint. You know, that's why a lot of comedy is really fast, really lots of fast talking, you know, back and forth, and just really quick punchlines, you know. And so the timing just doesn't feel clean enough. And part of that also is what I mean when I say that jokes outstay their welcome, you know? It's just like, okay, I see what you're doing. I see the basic gimmick of the gag here, you know? It's like a Saturday Night Live sketch that doesn't know when to quit. Again, the music, which can fade into the background, isn't doing anything to help me. If this would have been more like Danny Elfman's work for Planet of the Apes, which, you know, say what you will about the movie, I really like the soundtrack to that. It's got more of a modern vibe and some electronic stuff going on. But this score really operates a lot like his early stuff. Da-da-da-bum-bum-bum. There was it again. There it was again. Bum-bum-bum-bum. Man, again and again they're using it. And, you know, classic Danny Elfman is great for classic Tim Burton. But classic Danny Elfman is not good for modern Zack Snyder. At least not for my tastes and what's going to move me. And yeah, this looks like a ton of undercooked CG. But there's things I like about the scale and the scope. I mean, this is the kind of scene that you would want your heroes to head into at the end. But again, not much sense of stakes, you know? It's just this one family, pretty much, right? After Metropolis and Man of Steel, and at least the sheer destruction of Batman versus Superman. There just aren't near as many people that die or are under threat of death immediately and that are aware of, I mean, sure, yeah, this is going to wipe out the world, but how many people know? Okay, so we do have some people running around the background, a few scattered people here and there, some really undercooked CG there. Oof. Boy, they keep going to those intervals. Bum, 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 bum. And the score is much more buried under the action sound effects than in old Batman movies, so maybe you don't hear it as much as I do. But I just hear stuff like that. And I'm not really scared of these parademons, I almost feel like they're mischievous rather than truly dangerous. I mean, they're a lot of cannon fodder. Go team! I really like Jason Momoa's take on Aquaman. It really works for me. The whole rock and roll metalhead, biker, whatever vibe he's got going on. I really dig it. But I feel like that my man there, it's not quite earned. I don't feel like they've spent enough time together. They haven't, at this point in a movie like this, you want them to have been butting heads more often throughout the whole movie and then overcoming their differences here at the end and finally working as a team. But we didn't really get that journey with them. That was cool slow motion flash stuff there for a couple seconds. And he goes back to being incompetent. I want more of Victor's story about questioning his humanity and feeling haunted by what he's becoming, I mean, we're seeing little hints of that, but man, what this movie could be with so much more of that. You want, by this point, for them to be overcoming their differences to come together, and then also overcoming whatever's been haunting them or bothering them throughout the movie, whatever's been hindering them personally, internally. You want all those things to culminate and come together so that when Alfred says a comment like, "This is the team," it really is an amazing thing that they've come together and become a team at this point. Again, it's all a bunch of high-flying spectacle, so if that's what you want, you're getting it. I'm just not feeling anything. That would have been great if he would have screamed or something. When he got the axe in the shoulder. That was pretty brutal. I appreciate that being in there. But what if he had been pulling on him for a minute and Victor was screaming while he ripped him apart? Oh, this. Notice the lip. And that line is super like 1950s Superman. They're really trying to play it safe and conjure Christopher Reeve or something. I don't know what they're going for. That's like a line inserted by committee, I feel like. And Superman's fine. He's smiling and everything's easy. Little lip is still funny. Yeah, this is all... The climax is going to be... Look at that. The lip is still funky. All funky. This is not Snyder's vision. These exchanges here are not Snyder's vision. I bet there's more tension. There's more drama. There's more pain. Cost in Snyder's climax. That's my guess. I could be wrong, but you know it's going to be different. Still funky lip there. I'm not sure if I like the sound effects associated with the Flash's super speed in this movie either, and that's a post-production thing that could change. I feel like that's played for a laugh there, you know? I can handle this. Is he bothering you? Funky lip there, I think, still. Yeah. Yeah, that's still funky lip there, I think. Yep, definitely in that shot. There's some cost, there's some effort. So maybe there's just a lot less quipping and expositional exchanges between characters in Snyder's version. See, I doubt that's in Snyder's cut. I doubt that whole sequence there is in Snyder's cut. It's just too the camaraderie is just too easy and unearned. Yeah, that looked very suspect. Yeah, that doesn't look. Lip looks funny there too. I would believe some of that shot was Snyder. Huh. So in that opening scene, Batman established that the parademons seek out and attack fear. But if that wasn't in there, is that even part of Snyder's version? Makes me wonder, is this even how he goes down in Snyder's version? Is this even how Steppenwolf is defeated in the end? I don't know. And that feels played for comedy. This whole shot of seeing the helmet fall is meant to elicit a chuckle. Yep. All nice and tidy, wrapped up nice and neat. And no sense of cost. You compare the sense of cost at the end of Man of Steel. You compare the sense of cost at the end of Batman versus Superman. You compare the sense of cost even in Wonder Woman. And then you compare that to this movie. And you just don't feel the cost. And we should feel it a whole lot more for a threat lip, for a threat that requires all of them. Man, in this viewing, I'm noticing lip moments for the first time that I didn't notice the first time. Ones that aren't as glaring but are identifiable. And so now suddenly my mind is just kind of boggling at like, my gosh, how different is the Snyder cut really going to be? That, I think his lip's good there. Let me see it again. I think that's legit. That looks like legit lip. Huh. His hair's shorter here. I wonder if they cut his hair at that point to just show the passage of time and then realized, crap, we need to do reshoots. Will people notice if his hair is shorter now? I don't know. I don't know. Or was that scene part of a reshoot? I don't know. Either way, I don't feel like that moment was earned. Like, why does he decide, why is he inspired to go out and get a real job now? I'll bet that Wonder Woman scene was a reshoot. Just friendly Wonder Woman smiling with children, crooks being funny because they're tied up in the rope. So, I mean, big question. Clark Kent was buried and mourned at the end of Batman vs. Superman, but now it looks like he's thinking he can just be Clark Kent again. I don't know what to make of that. But again, that's something that I don't think necessarily is a knock on this movie. That's just something they're going to have to address in the next Superman movie. But one thing that I think is really missing is Zack Snyder's attention to Christ themes in both Man of Steel and Batman vs. Superman. Having watched them again recently and watched them with his commentary, you know, he's very clear that he is intentionally making parallels to Christ. And, well, let's look at this first. This is a reshoot scene, I'm pretty sure. Look at the lip now. Yeah, that lip is funny there. And he mentions brunch. It was a reshoot. He had reshoot hair when he made the brunch joke. Yeah, lips all funky there. Now, this is definitely a fan servicey moment, and I don't mind that. And I think I like the Ezra Miller Flash costume, you know. But no, what I was saying before, there's another bonus scene at the very end here. But the whole thing that I think could have been touched on, whether that's going to be part of Snyder's cut and his intention remains to be seen. But I just noticed that the whole idea is that Superman is the symbol of hope. His S is a symbol of hope. And I think that there are ways that Superman paralleled Christ in Man of Steel and Batman vs. Superman that unintentionally, because Zack Snyder's not a believer as far as I know. In fact, it seemed pretty clear that he wasn't in the commentary, but I'm not sure. Not pretty clear that he wasn't, but I think I would lean towards saying that he's not, based on kind of like how he talked about it. But the resurrection of Jesus is the reason we have hope. Paul says, I think it's in 1 Corinthians, that he says, if Christ was not raised, then we are dead in our sins. We are to be pitied above all people if Christ has not been raised. But Christ has been raised. And it's the source of our hope, essentially, is what he's getting at there, you know. The resurrection of Jesus, the fact that he rose from the dead, gives us hope for our own resurrection. And I'd be a little bit surprised if Zack Snyder was kind of aware of that connection, if he knew enough about just kind of like the gospel and Christian faith to understand that is the locus point of our hope as believers. But intentionally or not, I think that could have been another powerful parallel in this movie, where you have this world where they're saying people are without hope, people are fearful because the symbol of hope is dead. But if the symbol of hope rises from the dead and rises to rescue, then we can have hope. We have a reason to hope again, you know? And I think that I wonder, I don't dare hope, but I wonder if there will be an intended or more likely unintended parallel present in Snyder's cut to that idea that will really, I think, on a viewing of that kind of cut, be meaningful and powerful and cause at least Christians to reflect on the hope that we have because of Jesus and the rescue, the ultimate rescue that he provides, and that is sounded from the rooftops as being real because the resurrection we see in history, all the evidence points to resurrection being real. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see kind of just how I respond emotionally, depending on what Snyder does with the cut and what I bring, to my viewing experience in my own mind and my own experiences and thoughts. So, yeah, so this movie is not like this cringy bad experience for me. It's just very ho-hum for me, I'm just not emotionally invested, and it just needed a lot of room to breathe. I mean, honestly, I would be interested, not just as interested, but I would be interested in seeing a Joss Whedon cut where Joss Whedon was told, yeah, you're taking over duties here, but you can make a 2.5 hour, 3 hour movie. See what he would have done with that. But it was just like the ugliest cocktail of executives getting involved and influencing, maybe even forcing, we don't know, change, while Zack Snyder was still on the project, forcing reshoots, scripting changes and stuff. That's what Joss Whedon was originally brought on for, was to doctor the script and make changes to the script. I don't know if that was during shooting or not, but I think it might have been during shooting. And then there was the tragedy of Zack Snyder's daughter dying, committing suicide, and so of course he, stepped down to grieve that and deal with that. But instead of delaying the movie so that he could finish it, they had Joss Whedon come on, and I think some details have come out since that there was already a rough relationship between Snyder and some of these suits at Warner Brothers. I don't know if that's true or not, but I think that's kind of what I most recently heard. So that would, make sense of why they, in addition to, of course, them wanting to hit the date and there being a bunch of financial things involved in just, making sure the movie can still be profitable. Timing is important for those kinds of things. And it does cost money to delay a movie, and put it on a different date because of the marketing. You invest in the marketing campaign hitting at a certain time to lead up to a certain date, and so if you delay your movie, those deals have to be changed or remade. It costs a lot of money. Even if you're not working on the movie, you're just changing the date. It costs money, So, but, if they were all also having kind of a rough relationship with Snyder, then all the more reason, it makes sense to me that they would say, no, we're going to keep going, and we're just going to have Joss Whedon finish this. And then on top of that was the news that came out before the release of this movie in the theater, that one or two executives, for financial incentive, I might have said this before we even got started here, mandated the movie have a 2-hour runtime, so that they could, and they themselves had like bonuses or something that they were going to get, or more likely going to get, as a result of shortening the runtime. Maybe they shortened the runtime to get more showings in, and then based on a certain number of butts in seats, they would get bonuses or something. But it had something that, like, reportedly directly served them. So I mean, just a cocktail of bad things, All right. Well, let's see if there's any hope that we can get from this last little bonus scene for what's coming up, or what was going to come up before it all went off the rails. So we're in Arkham now. Batman made good on his promise and had Luthor transferred to Arkham. It definitely has a more cruddy Arkham vibe. You can see Arkham on his tags there. That's how we know we're in Arkham. I don't know, that felt a little comic booky and superficial, that moment there. Can't help but wonder if that, maybe this whole ending sequence here was a Whedon thing. But that shot there, I don't know, that whole use of helicopter there, that looks kind of Snydery. Yeah, that shot looks very Snydery. I would believe that's a Snydery shot. I had wanted the next time we saw Luther for the actor whose name I can't remember to to be having have a totally different interpretation for the character that would be justified by him having spent time in prison or having been, knocked off his rocker and gone more insane or something because of his encounter with Dark Side or Steppenwolf, or whatever. I'd wanted a different interpretation for that character to kind of emerge the next time we saw him. So we didn't get that. And then Slade Wilson, aka Deathstroke, is the character that shows up at the end there. That actor's face looks just familiar enough that I'm thinking they must have really planned carefully who they cast with the intention of using him in future movies, because he looks just familiar enough. I'm like, that's not some nobody. That's just a placeholder, for now. So I wonder what their intent was. Obviously, for some kind of a Injustice gang or Injustice League or something like that, which we've seen different variations of before in comics. But I mean, who knows what's going to happen now? Here's what I would like to happen now. I would love for Zack Snyder's cut to come out in early 2021 and to be just really celebrated, and something that, well, selfishly something that I really enjoy. But in addition to that, something that is that's celebrated and applauded and enjoyed by people who maybe even didn't like Man of Steel and Batman vs. Superman. I can't help but wonder if we are in a climate now where audiences are more ready for heavier movies, heavier superhero movies. We had a long stretch of Marvel movies that all basically had the same kind of tone until ramping up to get us into Infinity War and Endgame. And I didn't hear audiences complaining that, oh man, those movies are too serious. They didn't have fun. What happened to superhero movies? Superhero movies should be fun. I didn't hear people making those complaints, which I did hear about Man of Steel and Batman vs. Superman. Maybe they felt that you need to kind of earn that level of intensity with a slower build-up to it. For me, I'm okay with getting there as soon as we can. And then I'm even open to taking it further, But anyway, I wonder if now that that Marvel has gone there, if audiences will be a little bit more ready for it. I wonder if some audiences who found themselves watching Man of Steel or Batman vs. Superman again without this thought in their mind in advance, because I think that spoils the experiment. You get bad test data if you go in knowing that, okay, this is what I should be wondering about myself, But I mean, the more casual kind of viewer who maybe was like, yeah, it wasn't for me, a little too serious. I wonder if they just randomly sat down and watched it on the couch with a buddy today, would have a different experience. And maybe even in the heavier climate that we're in now with the coronavirus and stuff like that, as I record this, if they would be they would have a better experience and get some catharsis from a heavier, more dramatic movie. I've been hearing from, I've been seeing trends that like some really heavy movies about pandemics, like the movie Contagion, are really trending. People are watching them a lot. People are finding catharsis even though we're in a heavier environment than we typically have been in America and in Western culture for years. Things have really gotten heavier lately and more uncertain, and people have had more reason to be fearful and insecure, and yet they're going and watching a movie like Contagion that's trending right now. I think that there is catharsis that can be appreciated in those heavier movie experiences by some people. Now, some people, they don't want that. They want to get as far away from that as possible. If they feel like their whole life is going down the crapper, then maybe they just want to watch comedies. And I get that too. But all that to say, we're in a different climate now. I wonder if the aesthetic of Zack Snyder's DC movies was just about 5 to 7 years ahead of its time, and that really there will be an appreciation for Justice League and a retroactive appreciation for Man of Steel and Batman vs. Superman in the climate that we're in now. And my fantasy, my dream would be that the Snyder Cut is what I want it to be, has the tone I want it to have, and is really enjoyed and appreciated by people like in surprising ways and in huge numbers, so that DC says, okay, we trust Snyder again. We trust the original vision again. And, we'll start moving in that direction again. Maybe not necessarily full on, just, bowing at the throne of Snyder and saying Snyder can do no wrong. But just realizing, we don't have to shy away from being heavy. We don't have to shy away from being character-driven and letting movies breathe with longer, extended character investment sequences, I think, Wonder Woman was a hugely successful DC movie. So was Aquaman. I don't know if it was more successful or not, but Wonder Woman was very successful. And I thought, even though it didn't make me feel and wasn't as heavy and rewarding to me as, say, Batman vs. Superman, it still was rewarding, and it was wonderful in the dramatic places that it went. And so, if that's the one if that's the tone, the vibe that everybody likes, then let's do that, because it was still largely serious with jokes that were charming and sometimes got some chuckles and didn't outstay their welcome for me, So yeah, we'll see what happens. But I guess just in summary, what I would say is there's just so much of this movie that on this final viewing, things that I noticed that I never noticed before, that make me realize that this might be the product of reshoots in a much bigger way than I had originally thought. Just seeing so much more instances of the lip than I had even seen the last 2 or 3 times I've seen this movie. Yeah, it just really makes me wonder at this point how different the movie might be. And it might be different, when you talk about the lip and stuff and the reshoots and all that, the difference might not be in the script. It might just be that they decided to go back and use the same script, but reshoot the scenes with a different tone in the performances from the actors, So maybe the Snyder Cut will not be radically different in terms of the spoken dialogue. Maybe it will. I think there's going to be just a ton more. But yeah, my mind is just spinning now at the possibilities of what the Snyder Cut might be. Even if in many ways it's similar, like I said, a different take of the same line can make a mountain of a difference. So, let me think, is there anything else I would want to say? I just want more of what all the characters hinted at was going on in their lives. Diana talking about not wanting to lead because that means leading people potentially to their deaths, and she's just not ready to do that, And that just showed up in one scene, and felt like totally unearned and unled up to. Victor Stone, man, that could be such an interesting haunted character if they would show us more about what he's struggling with, the idea of losing his humanity and the friction between he and his dad. I mean, there's got to be so much more there, so much more, and I want to see all that, And I know that they're probably saving a significant amount in all these characters for their own solo movies to flesh things out. I'm almost certain I remember there was going to be a Cyborg movie that was canceled pretty quickly after this movie came out. Batman, there's some kind of through line from from the guilt he feels from basically contributing in some ways to Superman's death in Batman versus Superman. So I get that. I just would have liked that one to breathe a little bit more. So much more with Superman. Like I said earlier, I'm just kind of summarizing my thoughts now for those who might have skipped to the end here. I want the resurrection theme. He's the symbol of hope, and Jesus, because of his resurrection, is the reason we have hope as believers in Christ. And I don't think that would necessarily be an intentional theme, but it just fits so perfectly that I think all Snyder would have to do is just spend more time dealing with the despair and lack of hope that is felt by everyone in his absence, and then portray the recovery of that hope more powerfully when he returns from the dead. That's all you have to do. And it's already a one-to-one parallel with the Christian faith. Yeah, I wanted to look it up because I just wanted to be able to read it. It's from 1 Corinthians chapter 15, starting in verse 12. Paul says, "Now if Christ is proclaimed as raised from the dead, how can some of you say that there is no resurrection of the dead?" Meaning, period. There won't be a resurrection for anybody. That's not part of God's agenda for the future ever. But if there is no resurrection of the dead, period, then not even Christ has been raised. And if Christ has not been raised, then our preaching is in vain, and your faith is in vain. We are even found to be misrepresenting God, because we testified about God that he raised Christ, whom he did not raise, if it is true that the dead are not raised. For if the dead are not raised, not even Christ has been raised. And if Christ has not been raised, your faith is futile, and you're still in your sins. Then those also who have fallen asleep or died in Christ have perished. If in Christ we have hope in this life only, we are of all people most to be pitied. Our lives are pointless. And all that we're doing, all that we're sacrificing is we're just bringing harm to ourselves for no reason. But in fact, Christ has been raised from the dead, the first fruits of those who have fallen asleep. The first fruits meaning he's the first sample of what will happen to those believers who have already died. So the hope that we have for the mess of this life, the fact that we are going to die, we are all inevitably going to die in a certain number of days, weeks, months, or years. We are, in the meantime, going to suffer the consequences of death as a thing in this world, coronavirus being one example. There's just corruption and conflict on a molecular level going on in this world because of death's existence, corruption in this world. And so our hope is in resurrection, is in not just being revived, as is the case with Superman, he's just being brought back to life, but resurrection, as the Bible means it, is not just being revived and having your body healed and brought back to life, but being raised to new and perfect and immortal life. That is the hope that we are told about. And Jesus shows that this hope is a real one, a tangible one, by rising from the dead himself to an immortal, glorified, perfect body. That's the reason for our hope. So, I think that all you have to do is play up the idea of Superman as the symbol for hope, hope being compromised when he's gone, and hope returning when he rises from the dead, and the heart of Christian belief will do the rest in the hearts of Christians that watch a story like that, I think, So that would be a powerful thing. I'd love to see that happen. We'll see. Who else was I going to comment on? Flash and Aquaman. Flash, I want so much more going on with his dad. I feel like those scenes would not have been filmed without purpose, would not have been written without purpose. And I can't quite make the connection in the script between Flash's experience with the other League members and kind of like learning to fight alongside them or whatever, and what that has to do with him deciding to get a job at the end. Was he afraid of failure? If so, I don't feel like that was played up enough in his initial conversation with his dad. If he's afraid of failure, bring that out more. Bring whatever it is that's holding him back. Bring that out more and show us how that is addressed as a result of him spending time with the other leaguers. You know, that's what needs to be done there, so that I can feel that and be happy for him. And yeah. And what else? Aquaman. Now, arguably, we don't need much more with Aquaman, because we got the Aquaman movie, which really fleshed out his origins and his estrangement from Atlantis, but it still felt rushed. And I still feel like in this movie, there should be enough presented for each of these characters' backstories, especially the new ones, to help us know why we should care about them, what's at stake for them emotionally. And I just wanted more. I just wanted more of that, and I'll bet there was more. So yeah, I think that there's so much that could be done, that could be really cool with the Zack Snyder movie, but whether or not it actually delivers on that remains to be seen. So I guess we'll just have to see. Oh, I didn't talk about the villain and what I would want more specifically from the villain. There was a flashback sequence in Batman vs. Superman that showed kind of showed in a more impactful way what dark future would result if Darkseid were to get control of Superman, and in Zack Snyder's commentary, he explained that actually it was the anti-life equation that was controlling Superman. That wasn't clear at all in the movie. I mean, there's that commentary for Batman vs. Superman was really interesting because of all the intended seeds that were being planted, the time-traveling Barry Allen and all that stuff. I mean, gosh. But anyway, I wanted to understand Steppenwolf's talk of unity and, like, what does it mean to him for unity? What is unity to him? I mean, we know that, like, his plan was to basically turn Earth into another apocalypse, and to be like his home world. But all they really said in this movie was like it's going to totally destroy this world and make it a hellscape or whatever. We didn't understand enough of what that could look like and why it would be so horrible for humanity. Would it just wipe everybody out? Again, that scale is just too large. Just like, it's going to end all life, Even in, say, like the Avengers movies, Endgame dealt with loss, the loss of people, the wake of that. It wasn't just, we saw those stakes play out, and so I wanted like a foretaste, a foreshadow, a vision of some kind, some way that they could communicate what a horrible thing it would be for him to succeed in his plans. And what is his whole view? Like, is it going to be some bizarre, like, Lovecraftian existence when these dark gods from another dimension emerge and everyone just lives in hell, in a hellish existence? They're not obliterated, but they're living in this tortured, nightmarish, hellish existence. Well, express that in some way. It sounds like he has this really sadistic, bizarre view of what unity is. I mean, we think of unity as a good thing, but when he talks about it, it's going to be bad. But why is it called unity? Is it because everyone will share this bizarre hive mind subservient to the anti-life equation? They will have a hive mind that's given over to despair. So, I don't know. I don't know what that is. I don't know what unity is and why it's so bad and why you're so obsessed with it and why I should be afraid of it. There's just more I wanted to understand about Steppenwolf, what he wanted and what his vision for the future was. Or Darkseid, show us Darkseid. I think Darkseid in this Snyder cut actually maybe shows up at the end, is what I heard. So anyway, yeah. I am so curious what the Snyder Cut is going to be. I don't know if it will be what I want, if he's going to be totally cut loose and just say, do whatever you want, because there is something to be said for editing. You know, a lot of directors will deliver a 4 or 5 hour cut of their movie knowing that it needs to be cut down. So hopefully, if that's what Snyder shot and is prepared to edit, he has the sense to realize, well, it can't be 5 hours, you know. But there's talk of it being maybe 4 hours, maybe optionally being presented as a mini series on HBO Max instead of as a 4 hour movie. So we just don't know at this point. So it could end up being too unrestrained and too self-indulgent for me to even like it. And I love most Zack Snyder superhero movies. In fact, all of his superhero movies I love, you know. But if he's completely unrestrained, I don't know if I want that. I don't know. Anyway, now I'm just blabbing. So we'll all find out together, or maybe you have already if you're watching this much after I record it. Either way, that's all I have to say for now. Thanks for hanging out and listening to me blab at you. Bye-bye. ChristianGeekCentral.com